Hi, this is Patrick Henry, the CEO of QuestFusion, with the Real Deal, What Matters. I'm here today with Oren Klaff from Intersection Capital. Oren is a banker and a published author, and we're going to talk about a lot of things today related to startups, entrepreneurship, raising money, and hopefully some other fun and interesting things.
Sure, let's start with the fun and interesting and leave 2 or 3 minutes for startups and raising money, the hard, mentally difficult, engaging part. So
Yes.
Should we start on wakeboarding, motorcycles, or race cars?
I think all those things are super interesting and super fun. But why don't we talk a little bit about your background,
Sure.
like how you got into banking and
Yeah.
how you wrote a book and all this other kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, as I was telling you guys earlier, I've been on a couple hundred of these interviews, and I try and find something, that is new, so we're not just doing the same interview, but
Sure.
it's different.
Of course.
So on that question, how I got into it, I mean, I had a partner for many years who became very wealthy on he was a senior guy, he put up the money, he deserved to be wealthy, but I always assumed he was going to be a billionaire. And when you're the junior partner of a billionaire, you should have 80 to 100 million. So we were on that path. And then 2008 hit.
Yeah.
And he said, I have more money than I ever know what to do with. This is too much brain damage for me. I quit. Here's the firm.
Okay, wow.
Do whatever you want. Now, getting in a banking firm in 2008 is not exactly a gift. It's a punishment, right? So, then, took some time off.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're an investment banker and there's no debt
Yeah.
to be had anywhere and not much equity,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like being the center on a football team. The only thing you can do is snap the ball.
Yeah.
And if they're not playing football, there's nothing else you can do. You weigh 350 pounds and you can go like this.
Yeah.
And so, we just had to cool our heels until the market came back. And then I had a firm,
Okay.
and then I had to rebuild it.
Okay.
That's the background.
Now, did you end up working with the same guys you were working with before, or you kind of built
All new
everything
team,
from scratch? Okay.
built it up from scratch.
So this
right?
is Intersection Capital.
This is Intersection Capital. Here's a slab of pavement.
Okay.
Enjoy yourself.
Okay, awesome. And then what are you guys, like a full service investment bank, or
Sure.
what exactly do you guys do?
Yeah. So we're doing a $75 million medical services sell side. So we're selling a company now. We've got a couple deals where we're raising $10 to $15 million, and that's really our business: either selling companies or raising capital for growth.
For private companies.
For private
you're not doing like
right.
IPOs or
No.
pipes or all
No.
this other kind of
We do.
full service investment bank
Oh,
stuff.
the easy stuff. Yeah. If it's easy,
no trading.
if it comes in the door and I go, it's easy, you should go talk to Patrick. I'm going to wait for the hard stuff. When the hard stuff comes down the line, that's what the patron saint of tough deals. That's what I do. So private companies raising growth capital. We're growth junkies.
Okay.
Right? So beyond startups, I mean, we do have some startups in our sort of system.
Right.
We can only take so many, but largely these are growing companies who want to recap, raise
So
some
later
growth
stage,
capital,
kind of Series
sell.
C,
Yeah.
growth phase.
BC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you do convertible debt offerings and equity offerings, or just straight equity, or kind of what kind of stuff are you involved in?
Sure. Well, I think when you have a real company, right, you look at, what are the financing mechanisms? So it's some senior, it's some mezzanine, it's some equity, it's some recap. I guess I would say we do complex financings. Because if it's easy, the CFO is going to do it.
Sure.
Takes a little bit of debt. Most of the CEOs, know how to get a little bit of equity.
Yeah.
They raise 15 to 20 million already. So when they go, I'm confused, right? There's so many moving pieces, and I'm trying to grow a business. What should we do? Then we step in to find the solution. So it's like, hey, let's put some mezz on whatever income you have. Let's get a better class of senior in here. Let's recap management a little bit with some equity so they aren't so stressed about what's going to happen in the company. Let's put some working growth capital in. That's a complex financing that you really need a banker for.
Now, is it the complexity? Does it just deal with the financing mechanism, or? I mean, you mentioned you're involved with recaps, which is usually a more difficult situation with the existing equity investors, or is it, maybe it's a difficult story. Maybe they had some initial growth, but they're trying to penetrate a new market segment. Do you deal with difficult things like that on the operational side, or more just difficult financing things?
Yeah. This is the way I think about it. as long as the company isn't building smokestacks, manufacturing tofu, or sending lasers to ISIS, I don't care what they do.
Okay.
Operationally.
Okay.
You know, we're structurally financed. As
Okay.
long as it's legal, doesn't taste bad, right, and within driving distance of California, we'll work on it. If it's a capital efficient business. So these guys are experts in their business. You're
Right.
you're an expert in a vertical.
Yes.
We're experts in financial structures and the process for raising money.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. I was in a meeting with a $2 billion private equity firm on Monday.
Okay.
Right? And the private equity firms have these tricks or mechanics for beating up private companies. So
Sure,
the first
of
thing they
course.
go is, what's the board packet?
Yeah.
Right? And they go, oh, looks like you had a miss, because every growing company has misses. They pick a number and
Sure.
try and hit it.
Sure.
What caused the miss? Right?
Yeah.
And then they go, well, your new plan is incredible because you had a miss.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then they focus on the historical performance instead of the new products. That's how they beat down price.
Sure.
So what happens is then the CEO spends the whole meeting with the private equity group defending himself.
Sure.
So when this process starts, I step in and go, stop. We're not doing this. We're not grinding on the board packet because they picked a number and tried to hit it.
Mm-hmm.
They got pretty close. We're not looking at the historicals because if you want discounted cash flow or a cheap deal, that's a different deal, not this one.
Yeah.
What we're going to focus on is the future plan. Is that straight, or should we just wrap this thing up?
Yeah.
So that's a sophisticated capital markets knowledge of what a investor is trying to do to reduce valuation and price.
Sure.
And we're there. So this is nothing about product, nothing about plan,
Right.
nothing about operations, nothing about the technology.
This is gamesmanship associated with these types of sophisticated equity investors.
Sophisticated equity investors, in my experience, have very, very good tools for abusing the valuation of pretty good companies.
Yeah.
Right? And they have to, if you want to really get in, they have to, because when Bridgepoint or Excel or KKR or somebody puts out a term sheet, they need that term sheet to stick, because
Yeah.
they can't have reputations of term sheet going in and out and retrading.
Right.
So they want to get it as low a price as possible so the term sheet will stick.
Okay.
Like for my experience with Excel, they said, look, we're not going to change the term sheet. If we don't like the price, we just won't do the deal.
Yeah.
So these investor mechanics, market mechanics, what we help management teams understand. So even guys like yourself who have raised $200 million, but more.
More. Yeah.
More, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So hundreds of millions of dollars come back out into the market, and they're raising a different kind of money
Sure.
at a different pace with
Yeah.
different investors. The guys who are good go, you know what? I have raised $1 billion, but that was in the public markets
Yeah.
with Goldman Sachs. This is different.
Yeah.
I need somebody who knows what they're doing this for. That's a good client.
That's a good fit for you.
Right. Somebody who goes, I raised $1 billion. I'm a genius at this. I know how to deal with these guys.
Yeah.
They always trip themselves up. So.
Okay. So Oren is a published author of Pitch Anything. I actually have not finished the book, but I did start reading the book. It's interesting from my perspective, and I'm kind of a psychology-minded guy in addition to being a technologist. But a lot of the things I focus on from providing strategic guidance to startups is more on I would say not the psychological part of it, but more on, the blocking and tackling of how you run a business, how you build teams, how do you execute, how do you measure performance, how do you set a strategy, how do you develop a business plan. So I know, if you're interested in the book, it's an awesome book. It talks about the psychology of buyers and how you deal with the psychology of buyers. But you're the author of Pitch Anything. It's been 5 years since the book has been published. How was it to write a book like this, and was it a big impact on your career? And how does it affect you today in terms of your business with Intersection Capital?
Yeah, I mean, not much of an impact. Like, for example, if I walk down the street, people run up and go, hey, that's Oren Klaff. I go to get coffee. It takes me 3 times as long because people in, Carlsbad, Starbucks are going, there's Oren Klaff. We traveled, no shit. We traveled to Copenhagen. So speaking at a conference.
Yes.
Get off the plane. Cassandra's there.
Yeah.
My wife, my baby. I'm there. It's 2 a.m. The hotel manager comes out and he goes, "I know you." I go, "You don't know me. I've never been here before.
Yeah.
Just check us in the hotel, please God. It's 2 a.m. He goes, "I know you." And I go, "You're Oren Klaff." "Oh my God!" Brings out the book. So the book has changed my life. In that way, it's number 1, number 2, and number 3 on Audible. It's ranks higher than Blink, which was my goal. On Amazon. So the book is amazing. It's changed my life. I get phone calls every day from people that I never thought I'd have a chance to meet.
Yeah.
Famous. I can't drop names because they get mad, but
sure.
But household names. So the book has been great. But I'll tell you, so don't go off and write a book. I mean, there's
but has it generated incremental business for Intersection Capital?
It's the basis of it.
It
otherwise,
is. Okay.
Otherwise, I got to go to trade shows.
Right.
I have to cold call.
Yeah.
So
you get a lot of inbound interest just based on the book.
This is our marketing. Here's our marketing program. It goes like this. Come in the morning. We were 100 yards off the beach in Carlsbad, as you know. Open the laptop, hit Gmail, and we just try and absorb all the inbound traffic and see what's what.
Okay.
That's the impact of it. But you can't just write a book and go, "That's going to happen." I mean, I spent north of $150,000, maybe as much as $200,000 writing the book.
Okay.
I had researchers and I had analysts and I had people help with the writing and editors, and it's a real product.
Yeah.
Right? You just come home after work and say 2 hours, I'm going to write.
Yeah.
That's not. So when the book was finally published, the publisher called and they go, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm going to work."
Yeah.
Go, no, you got to go on book tour.
Tours,
and William Shatner goes on a goddamn book tour.
Yeah.
Right? And they go, "All my authors are doing window time." Right? Why aren't you in Poughkeepsie? Why aren't you in Wichita Falls? Why aren't you somewhere promoting this book? The other authors do. I go, they should have written a good book. So just sat at home, let it do its thing, and it's organic. So anyway, the things in the book are important. That's why, we get Fortune 200 companies go, "We read the book, and we need to change our 3,500 person sales force into doing what's in the book. Come in here and show us." And I go, "That's awesome. I'm not a sales trainer. Read the book again.
Yeah.
Have a nice day. Call me when you have a deal."
Okay.
Right? So that's the...
So
we talk about some of the things in there.
So then it's like far outpaced your original goal of what you intended it to do, or it's like you kind of like, "Oh, this is going to be awesome" when you wrote it.
I just roll with the punches. Come what may. I wrote the book. I knew, so my dad was a college professor at the University of Delaware. He was a statistician. My mom's a clinical psychologist.
Yeah.
And I sort of grew up with this philosophy: do the work, stand back, and let what comes, and accept it.
Okay.
Chop wood, carry water. Do the work, stand back, let it stand on its own. And so whatever happened with it, I didn't expect it. I did not expect it. It's good. I mean, they want to pitch anything. TV shows.
Really?
Yeah, they want to pitch CBS is a radio show. Will you do an hour a day on CBS radio? FM, not AM. I don't have an hour a day. So, lots of stuff comes. I say no to the anxiety and pissed offness of my agent and my publisher. But the book has been great because of the stuff in it, not the fact that it's a book.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
Anyway.
So let's talk a little bit about business. We talked about how you identify, potential clients for Intersection Capital. It's primarily inbound. But when you're kind of sorting through things, what's kind of your parsing process? What do you consider a good deal for you guys to work on?
Yeah.
Is it a certain amount of capital that they're trying to raise? You said you'll deal with any vertical, so there's not an industry focus you have. So kind of what are the checkbox or screening items that you use when you're looking at deals?
Yeah, like I said, we won't do weed, we won't do lasers, we won't do smokestacks, we won't do sex, we won't do retail, we won't do schmata business.
Yeah.
So because those things, high margin, fast growth, capital efficient, with a reasonable CEO and a good board.
Okay.
That to me, if you're within the sound of my voice anywhere and you provide advisory services, is it a good board and a good? Because what happens is you could do all this great work, as you know.
Yeah.
We talked about a company. You can bring an offer to the company, and they can turn it down.
Okay.
They can blow it, be unreasonable. They can blow it up. The CEO can want it. The board can go, you know what? From all this market demand that you've created, we see it's a good company.
Yeah.
We're going to put some more money in.
Yeah.
So if you don't have somebody that will follow through with the plan to finance the company, then you're doing 6 months of work for $50,000, and that's for a team of 10 people.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
So you got to have, if a company wants to finance, they have to follow through on it.
Yeah.
The board can't just go, you're a stalking horse.
Yeah.
For us to put in more money. And so I want a good CEO and a good board. I want omissions of integrity very early on always expand to real problems.
Sure.
So we're hyper vigilant at the end, and as a company should be with an investor, or a senior manager, we're hyper vigilant early on to flaws in puffery, over marketing, overstating, omissions. But so if we see integrity, we see honesty, we see a good CEO, it's a decent growth business, and they're moving into the next generation of whatever technology or product they have. Then I think that's pretty good to start getting involved.
Okay, cool. So how about, we shift gears a little bit and talk about, the consolidation in the venture capital industry and kind of the, emergence of the billion-dollar funds and, kind of the middle group, the $200 million, $300 million VCs kind of drying up to some great extent. Super angels coming in and filling that gap partially. Crowdfunding and all the buzz around that. I mean, what do you see kind of with that backdrop of the dynamics of private money? How is that impacting your business?
So I think what's good about it is we now know with a fair degree of certainty what is venture capital financeable. So before, you could take something out and somebody would have a fancy, in a $200 million fund with lots of discretion, and they could manage small deals. They go, well, it's not our normal cup of tea, but we like the CEOs. Now, at least in my experience, there's absolutely certainty what an A is, what a B is. You don't have to go to the valley to explore it. You can, if you do enough of this, ahead of time what is financeable and what's not. And if it's not, doesn't feel like a dead round A or a dead round B, straight on, check all the boxes, no gray areas, then you got to look for private money outside. So, I feel like most, at least the firms that I meet, have raised the money from the same limited partners.
Sure.
Okay, and so you can tell what a firm is going to do by its limited partners. Yeah. Because the limited partners have mandate, and CalPERS is going to want the same terms and requirements and paperwork. So these firms are all shades of each other, in my experience. So private money has become really important.
Okay. And then do you see like crossover funds fill in the gap somewhat in kind of what you guys are doing, or is it traditional private equity, or?
In what we're doing, we just see anomalous financing. So it is, you go to a private equity group, it's not for the group, but one of the partners loves this, his uncle died because of this disease, and it tickles his fancy and he wants to do it. Okay. So it's really, in many of these cases with the company, it's not about finding an institutional investor, it's finding somebody with some fresh capital that's anxious to invest, that has an appreciation for the vertical, and doesn't have a ton of deal flow. Okay. That's, I think, where you can get things done fairly easily. If one VC or one private equity firm says no, I mean, they're all going to say no. Okay. Right? It's just, you're not going to have, go out to 10 and the 11th one goes, oh yeah, they're just, I mean, I don't know what your experience is, but that is beginning to be my experience. Yeah, I mean,
there has to be alignment, and there are ways to do that if you have experience. A lot of people don't have experience, so they have to do more of a shotgun approach, and that's where, an advisor for me more in the earlier stage, an advisor like you more in the late stage, is beneficial because it makes you more efficient. And
well, I think what an advisor does, here's what I think, especially for the early stage companies, I see it's like the Soyuz moon capsule or space station trying to dock with the U.S. space station. And like it's like, and they try like 4 or 5 times. And eventually the fingers don't match, and the metal just starts to get mashed, and then it's hopeless. So I think what an advisor like you does is it maps the things the company has to the things that investors like and have funded before. And then these things kind of float together and they mesh. Right. But I just see companies, coming in like this, and
they may even have, the company might have the right stuff, but the way they're articulating it, the way they might be serving a meal in a way that's indigestible or even incomprehensible to a potential diner. So it's like you've got to feed them in a way that they're used to being fed.
And who's the investor? So I see a lot of companies, like you can go to a venture capitalist and go, hey, I have a fire engine, metaphorically, right? And they go, great, can I see it? And you go, yeah. And you hand them a box of Legos, right? And they look in it and they go, okay, I see, put this together, I see the fire engine, right? That's their job, is to look through the crazy stuff that you're talking about and see a company. But you go to a later stage venture group, like you were talking about it. You go to a private equity group, and you go, I have a fire engine. They go, great, let me see it. You show them a box of Legos. They go, well, I have no idea what that is.
Right.
I don't see. And you go, yeah, see, if you put these together, then that's the ladder. And you go, I have no idea. So if you say you have a fire engine, you have to be able to describe it in that way. So early stage venture guys, are willing to look for something. Right, but you go beyond sort of the angel or very early stage. You have to describe things maybe I'll put it this way. So a lot of guys come to me and they say, well, I'm getting so many questions about my presentation. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. My presentations, people listen for 25 minutes. They go, thank you, that was great. How do we get paperwork? So why do people listen to my presentations and you can't get 5 minutes into it and everybody's asking all these questions and interrupting you? Because I'm giving the information exactly the way the investor thinks about a deal, has questions about a deal, and is interested in hearing about a deal. And so he's just being entertained. He's going, great. I'm in the hands of a professional who knows how to pitch a deal and knows all the deal components. And then you could say, well, if we follow that further, what does that mean? And for me, it means you're talking very, very briefly about the product. So entrepreneurs and startups, in my experience, want to talk. So if you got 20 minutes to really capture the mind of an investor, they want to talk for 30 minutes about their product. And I believe that investors, once you say it is a ball bearing, it's covered with Kevlar, it spins 15 times faster than any competing product and costs half as much, they go, great, got it, have no more questions. What's the deal? All right, and so companies want to talk about products for 90% of the time, and investors want to talk about the structure of the company and the deal for 90% of the time, and that's where the collision happens. And I don't know, I've seen this about 1,000 times, but maybe I've seen the only 1,000 times that's true, but I'm starting to believe.
I think you have a representative sampling of the same kind of stuff I've seen. So
don't be afraid to contradict me. You could say, hey, Oren, your head is full of dead insects.
Oren, I think you know me well enough.
All right, that's fair enough.
So how about the Jobs Act? Is that affecting your business, or is that more like early stage stuff?
It doesn't affect our business.
Doesn't affect you guys at all? Okay. And then what about, your competitive advantage? Does it deal with the psychology of pitch anything? Or does it deal with the mechanics of how to deal with investors from a technical standpoint? Or is it some combination? How do you make sure that you're saying, okay, Intersection Capital is different than other investment banks because of X?
Very easily. If we get a call and say, hey, we're interviewing 7 firms, would you like to come in and make a presentation? So the answer to that is no, right? Because that's not how you get an investment banker or an advisor. You talk to a bunch of people, you go meet with them on their turf, and you find somebody that you like, somebody that you trust, somebody you believe in, right? And you try and form a fair deal. You don't buy it like you buy a washing machine or a copier, right? And so we don't think that's a healthy process. And it's only meant to crush price. If you want and I'm not interested in price crushing processes.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever ends up with that deal is going to be sad, right? But it's not going to be me. So this is, look, if you want to do a bake-off and you have Goldman Sachs, you have us, and you have American Growth Capital. And you go, oh, we're looking at a small firm, the porridge is cold, porridge is medium, porridge is hot. We're looking at 3 different firms from 3 very different backgrounds. I'll do that. If it's a fair fight and I can win it, I'll get in it, right? We take deals from, UBS and JP Morgan, at the tiny, tiny end of what they'll look at, and we win those deals sometimes. So I'll get in a fair fight, right? But, in a comparison. So the other way that I think about it is somebody comes in and I go, listen, you're interviewing banks, that's a smart thing to do. I'll tell you what we do, okay? There's 2 ways investment bankers or advisors look at a deal. One is package up what you've done in the past, write it all up, put it in a deck, send it out to a bunch of people, and get people to come in and bid, right? To me, that is a race to the bottom for price. And if you want to do that, you can get a bank, you're going to get some 30-year-olds, they're going to do a beautiful presentation, send it out to Excel and to Kleiner Perkins and to, God knows, True Ventures and to Crosspoint and Crosslink and Link Cross, right? And all those guys, and you'll get some interest. And if you want to do that, go do that. That's 1 point, 2 points, 3 points in terms of success fee. And if you want to tell people about what you've done in the past and get your valuation or your deal based on that, you should go do that. We are mature storytellers and talk about what's going to happen in the future, right? And make the future that you're telling people will happen feel very likely that it will happen. And that means supporting the assumptions in a narrative, statistically, economically, socially, technologically, and that's a complex story to tell to investors and make it believable. But if you want somebody alongside you to tell people that the future you're saying that will happen is very, very likely to happen, right? That's us. And we do that in a partner. And so if you want to talk about what's going to happen and finance and value your business on that basis, then you'll want us. If you just want to tell people what you've done in the past, send out a deck, go get somebody else. We don't do that. That's the way I try and think about it.
So if I were kind of translating this from my experience, you've got kind of a deal broker, and then you've got somebody that's more of a partner that's coming alongside you that is actually much more heavily involved in describing what the strategy looks like and the mechanics associated with it, but putting a translator on that so that potential investors can understand it.
I think that's so important. So you have to run a broad process. Yeah. Right? In order to run a broad process, you have to have a story that is understandable by normal business people.
Sure. It's got to be put in layman's terms.
Otherwise, you just got to go to if you're in med tech, if you've got a device for like a cerebral aneurysm, you can only go to people who have done those devices with an industry deck. But if your story is today, so I'll give you an example. In America, there's 800,000 strokes annually. Okay? And if you're near use, and in a stroke, it's a little different from the rest of healthcare. In healthcare, days count, hours count, but in a stroke, a cerebral aneurysm, seconds count. Now, if you're near UCLA, if you're near Scripps in La Jolla, if you're at the Cleveland Trauma Center, there's good news for you. There's a 25% chance you're going to get some of the modern technologies and walk out. But if you're anywhere else, you can basically kiss the life you had goodbye. Right? Our technology is now is used at Scripps, it's used at UCLA, and it is now extending to the other places in the United States where those 800,000 strokes happen and saving lives daily. So that's a broad-based pitch that Mark Cuban can understand, that a private equity group that maybe doesn't have a med tech practice.
So you break an economic model and say, okay, this delivers some level of price performance that was previously not available, and there's a big market, and there's this huge need. There's a problem I'm really solving that hey, somebody's going to pay for this.
And you personalize it, you personalize the demand, people can relate to it. Now you can run a broad process when you have that story.
Yeah.
If you just go, we have a cerebral aneurysm coil that will fit through a .064 pipe and can expand another 3 millimeters and has statistically the efficacy of steel at the cost of aluminum, then you can only talk to a very, very narrow group of people. So you run a broad process, a lot more sort of people at the table, and then you're a lot less needy.
And the story still has layers. I mean, they still will bring in somebody to do the technical due diligence, but you actually get to that point as opposed to trying to get a horizontal investor to understand something that's a deep vertical, which they never will.
I think that's something we've been good at, is getting firms to go, no, we don't look at that kind of deal, to go, but that's interesting, right? Bring that in.
Yeah.
We haven't done one of those, but this looks good. You know, we've never done genetics. We're a software company, but we should open a healthcare practice. Bring it in, and so if it's a human story that's got a broad business appeal, you can get lots of people to look at it. And so that's the difference between a broker and a banker. So that's. I think that was a long answer to a short question.
So now we're going to get to the opening stuff, like race cars and surfboards. And like, tell us something a little bit about yourself and what you do for fun, and maybe something that the audience wouldn't know about you, even though you're the famous Oren Klaff from Pitch Anything.
Yeah, no, terrific. I love motorcycles.
Yeah.
I love motorcycles. I probably owned 1,000 motorcycles.
Street bikes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a bunch. So I'm down to about 20 bikes that I actually ride from time to time. So I have a bunch of Ducatis, some American bikes that are just hand constructed. I love motorcycles, but I have a baby now. So even though I have a big warehouse full of cars and motorcycles and trucks, and basically everything has a dead battery. Everything's leaking oil because I work. Again, I'll go work out, and then go see my baby. This is 2, and then I'm tired. I have some dinner with my wife, and then I go to sleep, and it's Groundhog Day. Wake up the next day. But it's just what do guys like when they get a little bit of working capital? They like snowboarding, and they like traveling, and they like going to sweat. I'm not into poverty tourism. Going to the impoverished parts of the world. I like going to Switzerland. I like snowboarding. I like motorcycle riding. We're here in Solana Beach, meeting people like Patrick. That's the fun stuff.
Awesome. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about?
Let's see. I think if I would hit on the book for a minute and say what is Pitch Anything, what's so important for me, and why the book is important to people is when you go into these meetings. Right. You have and most of them start like this. Hey, thanks for sending the information. We looked at it, but why don't you start from the beginning, all right? And so no matter what your status and credibility, the people sit in the room that you go to pitch or get on the phone, they're thinking about something else.
Sure.
They can barely remember, the material that you sent them, and you're really starting from 0.
Yeah.
Right? And so your job is to raise your status, to impress them on your credibility, your busyness, that you're in demand, and that you have a great deal. So they pay attention. People will only pay attention to people of status. All right? You can look up a status test, or I discuss it heavily in the book. So your number one job is not to say, thank you so much for letting me come here. Really appreciate, we're so excited to meet you, because those are status lowering things.
Sure.
Come on time and say, hey, look, it's 10 o'clock. We agree. Even though I was late here. But try and come on time. But whatever time you're there, say, hey, we agreed to start at 10. It's 10:05. I know you're still waiting for people to come, but I'm busy. I have to leave at 11. Why don't we kick the meeting off, and whoever comes, so we can complete it. This high status, professional behavior of a real business person.
Yeah.
So raise your status, get your pitch done in 20 minutes, and at the end of the meeting, put pressure on the buyer or the investor, and don't ask them what they think. And that's what Pitch Anything is about, is how to run that process so you're in control and the investor doesn't just grind you into pulp, blow you away, dust in the wind, and you wonder what happened. Right? If something bad happens, you make that bad thing happen. You don't get bad things happen to you. That's what I think Pitch Anything is about.
And I, like I said, I haven't read it all, but I've read enough to know I kind of like use that as a mirror versus my experience.
Yeah.
And I love your stories, by the way.
Yeah.
Your stories are amazing. I think that's one of the things that makes it so, gets to your heart and really makes you think about things. But there's a lot of subtlety associated with the things you talk about, and I think that's where coaching and mentorship and having somebody a sounding board.
Yeah.
Because it's not like a math textbook where, okay, now I know how to do differential equations. There's a human element to this stuff, and I'm not saying somebody that's a deep science technical founder can't do the things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it takes coaching, it takes training, it takes mentorship.
Yeah.
So it's great book. I think it's awesome. You're a great guy. I'm really glad you could join us today. I know you're super busy.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Oren. Appreciate it.
It's great.
This is Patrick Henry, the CEO of QuestFusion, with The Real Deal: What Matters.